commercial truck driver, licensed by California, was driving on the highways of Florida when he pulled a U-turn and killed 3 people. He did not speak English. He did not understand road signs. Now, 2.5 million moonbats have signed a petition for leniency saying accidents will happen. Was it an accident or was it murder? 617-266-6868, 617-266-6868 is the number here. I'm Sandy Shack, sitting in for Jeff Kuhner here on the Kuhner Report. President Trump has done a spectacular job closing the border, but we still need to deal with the illegal aliens who are here. ICE is deporting as fast as they can while dodging rogue judges and blue state mayors and governors doing their best to hamper the process. They're bound and determined to keep as many illegal aliens as possible in place to, why would you do that? You ask the question, to protect their voter base. Like in Illinois, I'm going to give you an example of some bad blue state governance that causes a bigger problem here. Illinois started to provide standard driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants last year, and Governor Pritzker has now signed a bill into law to allow them to become driving instructors as well. So back in 2013, Illinois was one of the very first states to issue temporary visitor driver's licenses to help drivers who passed road tests regardless of immigration status. Now, that law allowed undocumented immigrants to receive standard IDs without the big purple mark on it that said not valid for identification. And it allowed, and this bill, the bill that they're doing now, allow anybody with a license for at least 2 years to teach a driving course. Now, the sponsors of this said the change will expand the people eligible to become driving instructors without reducing qualifications for the job. And here are the qualifications. You have good moral character. You have passed a criminal background check. You've passed an exam from the Secretary of State's Office on Traffic Laws and Safe Driving Practices while being able to physically operate a motor vehicle safely and graduating from an accredited high school. And then potential driving instructors must also be authorized to work in the U.S. Doesn't that let out illegals, by the way? How can an illegal qualify? But that is what Governor Pritzker is trying to do. This, of course, is an effort to normalize illegals, make them appear as if they have a right to be here. But when you normalize an illegal alien by doing something like giving them a license, whether it is a basic passenger car license or a commercial trucking license, and you do it without regard to qualifications, you put everybody's life at risk in your own state and in other states as well, all of the other states. There is data to support what I'm saying to you. And in the past month or so, this issue has really hit a crisis point because there has been a rash of fatal car crashes linked to illegal immigrant drivers. Authorities in all different parts of the country have announced arrests of multiple illegal immigrants accused of fatally striking drivers, pedestrians, a teen on a bike. This is what's been going on, and we're just talking about the past month or so. According to the Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security, that's Tricia McLaughlin, this is the statement that they made. It seems to be almost a daily occurrence where an illegal alien driver kills innocent Americans. All of these deaths are preventable because these illegal aliens should never have been in our country. Is that a fair statement? Do you agree with what she's saying? Because I think it's actually downplaying it. I'm going to give you some examples of these accidents or these deaths that have occurred in the past month. In Louisiana, a 31-year-old Juan Alfredo Chavarria Lezama is accused of slamming into a bicycle ridden by a 15-year-old boy in Livingston Parish. That was around dusk as the sun was setting. The victim, because it was a child, has been unnamed, but was airlifted to a hospital, but then died of his injuries. Now, Shavaria faces charges of vehicular homicide, driving while intoxicated, driving without a license, and a slew of other charges. He was the subject of a detainee request from ICE before the accident. Then in Nashville, August 10th, an early morning crash left a woman dead and her husband seriously injured. Police arrested Julio Cesar Herrera Gonzalez on drunken driving, vehicular homicide, and a slew of other charges. He is an illegal immigrant from Honduras. According to the Department of Immigration, he is a criminal illegal alien who was granted temporary protected status back in 2008. But that was revoked in 2015 because he had a criminal record. They identified the victims of the crash as 37-year-old Raquel Loreno Sarabia Baraja, who died, and her husband, Marco Antonio Baez del Angel, who suffered life-threatening injuries. Then let's go to Lewiston, Maine. Let's go to New England. 31-year-old Lionel Francisco drove up a curb in a 2013 Buick and hit a Massachusetts woman who was walking at the edge of the park. He was driving with a learner's permit. He did remain at the scene and cooperated, but he was also, by the way, a subject to an ICE detainer and is from Angola. His tourist visa expired back in July, but he remained in the country illegally. Also in Maine, another illegal from Angola was accused of killing a 64-year-old female pedestrian in New Gloucester last week, a week and a half ago. Mukendi Mibaya arrived in the U.S. with a tourist visa in December of 2018. That expired in 2019, but he never left. Let's see. In Wisconsin, the end of last month, police arrested 30-year-old Noelia Soray Martinez Avila, accused of driving the wrong way before slamming into two high school sweethearts, killing them near Madison, Wisconsin. According to the outlet, she had a previous conviction for drunken driving back in 2020. Wow. And then, of course, that's going to bring us to Harinder Singh, an illegal immigrant from India who has now been accused of making an unlawful U-turn near Port Lucie, Florida, and causing a crash that killed 3 people riding in a minivan. Singh, by the way, has failed to recognize 3 out of 4 highway traffic signs and answered just 2 out of 12 questions correctly on an English proficiency assessment delivered by the transportation officials. And despite laws preventing illegals from attaining full commercial driver's licenses, Singh received one from Washington State in 2023 and then received a limited commercial license from California. He entered the U.S. illegally in 2018, was rejected for work authorization under the first Trump administration, and then fled to California after the crash. He was arrested in Stockton, by the way, and he has been, I believe, extradited now to Florida to face charges. And it's Singh who has become the poster boy for America's outrage over the danger that progressives and blue states have put not just their own citizens in with their power-hungry policies trying to increase their voter base, but they've put all of us in danger. And Singh is just one of numerous examples of how normalizing illegal aliens by doing things like giving them driver's license put us all at risk. Now, Singh, who, as I said, lived in Stockton, California, is now facing vehicular homicide charges after that horrific crash and is in Florida and is also facing deportation. He's 28 years old. He made his first court appearance last week, and this whole case gained huge national attention from politicians questioning his immigration status and why he was issued a California commercial driver's license, given the fact he does not speak English. In court, he needed a translator. He could not converse with anybody in court. And at that time, I think he gave a one-word response with the aid of a translator, which was he wanted an attorney. Investigators say he was behind the wheel of a semi-truck that made an illegal U-turn across all northbound lanes of Florida's turnpike. He'd pulled a U-turn in the middle of Florida's turnpike, and he was turning in the wrong direction. A minivan then collided with the truck, killing all 3 people inside. Now, federal records show that Singh crossed the southern border illegally in 2018 before he got his California commercial driver's license. So he's checking all the boxes here, isn't he? This is an example of the policies of blue states that encourage and normalize illegal aliens. Issuing driver's licenses to illegals, many of whom can't speak or read English, is putting us all in danger. So I ask you again, given that this is an in-your-face breaking of the law, no qualifications necessary in order to get a commercial license, was this really just an accident in Florida? Or is Singh and the officials that helped him get a driver's license, are they complicit actually in murder? Sandy Shack in for Jeff Kuhner here on the Kuhner Report. An illegal alien got a commercial driver's license, first from Washington State, then from California, before pulling a U-turn on the Florida Turnpike, causing a crash that killed 3 people. Was it an accident or was it murder? And that's going to be our poll question today, which you can take on X at the Kuhner Report or at WRKO/Kuhner. The poll question is sponsored by Mario's Quality Roofing, Siding, and Windows. So is that an accident? Because people say accidents happen. Or is it murder? To me, this accident is the result of policies, blue state policies specifically, that encourage and normalize illegal immigrants. I mean, issuing driver's license to illegal immigrants, many of whom cannot speak English. You know, that is one of the, and can't read signs. In 2024, Singh was issued a limited term non-domiciled CDL, a permit that would be issued to someone who can legally work in the U.S. but is not a citizen. So even though he's here illegally, he's deemed by the state of California to be eligible for this license. And you know, this is a year after the state of Washington issued him a regular full-term commercial driver's license. Now, Department of Transportation rules say that asylum seekers and those without legal status are ineligible for this type of license. So neither state should have even looked at him. Even if he was fluent in English, he could read the traffic signs with no problem. And there's more. On July 3rd, this is about a month before the crash, Singh was stopped for speeding in New Mexico, where state police gave him a roadside inspection. And there is nothing to suggest that Singh was given an English language proficiency test when he was stopped. They didn't try to find out if he spoke English. Now, as was demonstrated by his need for a translator in court, Singh is not proficient in English. What was the governor of Florida's response after 3 of his citizens were killed outright on his Florida Turnpike? As you can imagine, he was enraged. Cut number 41, please, Mike.
He will get the book thrown at him very shortly after that, I can guarantee you. How ridiculous is it that somebody would get a commercial driver's license who doesn't understand the language of this country, doesn't understand road signs, doesn't understand these things? 3 Floridians are dead, in part because of the recklessness that we see out on the left coast.
Yeah, that's completely understandable, his response, don't you think? I found it, I thought he was, you could see the veins popping on his neck. He was so upset when he was discussing it. And that cut is edited together a little bit because it was very long initially. And we just wanted to let you get the flavor of what he was saying. So that was the governor of Florida. So what do you think the liberal left's response has been to this horrific crash that killed 3 people? I don't think you're going to believe it. I didn't believe it when I first found out. Over 2.5 million people have signed a petition begging for clemency for Singh, suggesting instead maybe counseling and community service. I kid you not. I am so flabbergasted by this. This is what the petition reads. We, the undersigned, urge Governor Ron DeSantis and the Florida Board of Executive Clemency to re-examine and reduce the sentence for 28-year-old driver involved in a fatal U-turn crash on Florida's Turnpike in South Florida. This was a tragic accident, not a deliberate act. While accountability matters, the severity of the charges against him does not align with the circumstances of the incident. Consider alternative sentencing options, such as restorative justice measures, counseling, or community service, aligning with both accountability and compassion. And then some signers even put video messages supporting, saying, this is some guy named Josh. I am in support of Harjinder Singh. I know it was an accident. He made a terrible mistake, not a deliberate choice to harm anyone. He was working hard to support his family like so many of us. One wrong decision changed everything. A 45-year prison sentence is not justice. Okay. Now, first of all, he hasn't been sentenced yet. He hasn't been tried yet. He's going to be tried. He hasn't been tried yet. So these people don't even understand that he hasn't been tried yet. You know, he hasn't even actually been charged yet. He's going to be, but he hasn't been. And they have no idea what the circumstances are, and they are already begging for clemency, saying, don't blame him. Oh, accidents happen. Are you kidding me? Accidents happen? I agree that some accidents are just caused by an unforeseen confluence of events. But is that what happened here? Or was this completely foreseeable? Singh knew he did not speak or understand English. He knew he did not understand the road signs. This was no mystery to him or a surprise to him. You know, he knew he was not qualified to drive a commercial truck. Yet, there he is driving a deadly weapon, which is what a commercial truck is, on an interstate, on a turnpike, on a Florida highway. This is not an accident. These are deliberate actions. And a deliberate action that kills someone, in this case, 3 people, isn't that murder? What do you say? Let's go to Dave in Stoneham. Dave, is this an accident or was it murder?
Well, it wasn't premeditated, so, I mean, it is an accident. It's an accident that shouldn't have happened, but 2 things I want to say to you. Oh, and thanks for taking my call, Sandy.
Oh, you're welcome.
First of all, I've been driving 18-wheelers for over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have a perfect record. This new breed of truck driver they have, us experienced, seasoned guys, we don't call them truck drivers. We call them steering wheel holders.
Ooh.
And, yeah, and the reason is because nobody wants to go into trucking anymore. There is some program that the federal government's had for a while. I forget what it's called. It goes back way before Trump. I think even before his last term. And what they do is they give this special visa to foreigners to come here to become drivers, commercial drivers, and they fast-track them to it. So they have very...
Oh, Dave, hang on. We're talking about a crash that happened down in Florida when an illegal alien with a CDL license from California crashed into three Floridians after pulling a U-turn on the Florida Turnpike. And before the break, we were talking with Dave in Stoneham. He's a commercial truck driver, 18-wheelers, and he was telling us about today's truck drivers. Dave, I'm sorry we were interrupted.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. So, yeah, whatever that program is I mentioned, and I see these guys every day on the highway, and whether they're legal or not, and I have nothing against, foreigners coming to this country to better themselves and work in any field they want, but I see these guys, and it's like a new breed of truck driver. They're reckless, they speed, they change lanes, they're out in the far left lane where you're not supposed to be. There's no courtesy amongst them, whereas the older truckers, we help each other out. Let you change lanes or pull out into traffic. But no, they just cut you off. It's like, and that's why all these accidents are happening. But make a note, Sandy, to do this when you have time. Did you see the video? There's video of it.
Yes, I've seen the video. The entire world has seen the video. It has gone viral.
And you can see, because he has a dash cam, which most trucking companies have nowadays, because he was at a right angle, you can see that van go under his trailer.
Yeah. It's heart-wrenching. Heart-wrenching. It's absolutely frightening, Dave.
When I first saw the video, I thought, because I found out about this before it was even in the local news. I found it on some trucking forum I belong to. At first, I thought the video was fake.
I know. It's just, and he doesn't even seem to react in the video. He's like, huh? What happened? I mean, now, I understand what you're saying about that the new truck drivers coming up are reckless and don't really have the same road etiquette that the older generation of truck drivers have. But if add to that, Dave, the fact that you have illegals not speaking English or understanding the road signs on top of that problem. And I think then you get to a point where it becomes criminal behavior. That is my point. And you said in the beginning that you didn't believe it was premeditated, that it was an accident. Now, I agree with you to this extent that him killing 3 people was not premeditated. He didn't mean to go out and kill 3 people. But his actions that led to that were all premeditated. They were deliberate actions. He knew he wasn't qualified, yet he drove a truck. He knew he didn't speak English, yet he drove a truck. He knew he couldn't read the road signs, yet he drove a truck. And he knew it was a big freaking truck that could cause a lot of damage, and he was on a public highway. He knew all of these things. These were all deliberate actions. So to me, Dave, that is premeditated.
Do you think maybe he's faking it? Maybe he has enough English to get by, and now that he's in big trouble, he's pretending he has no English.
Well, except that he was pulled over in New Mexico a month before this accident, and again, he didn't speak English. He didn't have any English. So it's not just since this accident that there's been a history, and he didn't pass the English proficiency test that he had to take in order to get his license. They still passed him anyway, even though he didn't pass that. So it's not, I don't believe it is a fake. He doesn't speak English.
Maybe the family of those 3 people get some kind of class action lawsuit against the state.
A class action law. I'm sorry, Dave, you're breaking up. Dave is saying maybe there's some kind of class action against the state. Maybe there is. Actually, I think that's not a bad idea, because I think, and thank you for the call, Dave. I appreciate it very much. I think that the elected officials and the bureaucrats in Washington State and California, they knew that there were laws on the books regarding commercial drivers for a reason, that big trucks are dangerous, and that the rules and regulations that are in place regarding the licensing for those trucks and everything else regarding those trucks are there in place to protect everybody who shares the roads with them. By not enforcing those rules and handing out commercial licenses to normalize illegals and ensure the voter base for the elected officials in those states, are they not also responsible here for that accident? To Dave's point, shouldn't they be liable as well? Are they actually guilty of murder for creating the situation where this could happen? What do you think? Arthur in Chestnut Hill, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Arthur?
Good morning, Sandy, and as always, you're doing a great job.
Thank you, sir.
And always a pleasure to hear you on the radio and to converse you after all these years. This is the business that I've been in for over 30 years. Although they bankrupted me, the government with the COVID stuff by putting all the clients I had out of business. And once they went out of business, I didn't have clients, and I was in the box truck, not the trailer truck, simply because number one, the regulations for trailer trucks and that kind of over the road hauling, the regulations are huge, and way too much that I wanted to even get involved with it. And this guy, okay, there's no way he didn't do this deliberately. You don't need to. And by the way, when you see the photo, at the bottom of the photo, there's a sign there's a no U-turn sign. Not that you need a sign really to know that you shouldn't be making a U-turn on a highway when people are going 65 behind you and on the other side. And there's a guardrail on the other side.
Yeah.
And he looks like he just made the U-turn and stopped as the car went on. And what would anybody think is going to happen? To me, it's like a terrorist attack. There's no way in the world that this guy could not know that what he was going to do was going to cause that kind of a effect. And he's lucky that he didn't get all the way on the other side. He would have caused it on both sides. That's number one. And I don't know that we don't have enough information on the people and how he got his license. One of the biggest rackets in every state is selling licenses. Because to get a CDL license, even for a box truck, you have to take a course and you have to, and sometimes you have to go to school. You have to do a lot just for a box truck, and for a over the haul truck, a trailer truck, it's even more involved. So how this guy could even pass a test like that, if he has those limitations, it's impossible unless he was sold these licenses. And obviously the companies that they gave him jobs and work didn't care, and there are plenty of companies like that around. You remember before COVID, there was a guy in Connecticut, an illegal, that killed 7 people, hauling some vehicles on an illegal trailer.
Yeah.
He killed 7 people.
Yeah.
You think just because you're driving along, you think you're safe. Well, one thing I've said to Jeff many times, you're not safe anywhere anymore because we're dealing with third world people. We did this to ourselves. We're overloaded with these people. I couldn't even start a company again like that because the kind of drivers you get, this is all you get. You can't get good quality truck drivers like the previous caller said. And that's why trucking companies like that have gone bankrupt over and over again all across the country. These companies, these major companies are going out of business. 20 years ago, there used to be 10 truck rental companies in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. Now there's only 2. They destroyed the industry, and the states are very culpable. He's not the only one that should be tried with murder. Everywhere there's a lot of people from when he got the license, from when he got hired, and whoever put him on the road, they put him in a lethal weapon. And that's why I was always careful to hire drivers, because you had to see a driving record, otherwise you couldn't get insurance. These were all insurance regulations for every company. Nothing was followed here, and this was the predicted result. And I think he did it intentional, because I don't care where you come from, no matter where in the world. No one in their right mind would make a U-turn on a highway like that, and a driving rail on the other side.
Yeah, I agree with you. So I absolutely agree with you. I think it was deliberate, and I understand Dave from Stoneham's position wanting to say it's an accident. He didn't mean to kill 3 people. I know he didn't pick out those 3 people in a van and say, I'm going to kill them. But everything he did was building up to something that was going to be horrific and probably fatal. And he had to know that in the back of his mind and not care. And one of the things that freaked me out, Arthur, when I saw the video was the fact that this van crashes into him. You see it on the video. He doesn't respond. He's just like, he doesn't care. That to me is complete disdain for human life, to be honest with you, whether you think they're dead or hurt or whatever. So thank you for the call, Arthur. I appreciate it very much. So now we are actually 1-1. We've had one caller who thinks it's an accident, and we have one caller who thinks it's a murder. What do you think? Did that CDL driver, illegal alien, who doesn't speak English or read road signs and pulled a U-turn in Florida, was that an accident that killed 3 people? The non-English speaking illegal alien commercial truck driver who killed 3 people after he tried to pull a U-turn on the Florida Turnpike has been extradited to Florida to face charges. 2.5 million members of the liberal left have signed a petition saying, don't be too hard on him. It was just an accident. How about counseling instead of prison? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis had some words for these people. Cut 40, please, Mike.
He intentionally got behind the wheel of that big rig knowing that he did not understand what was going on around him. He could not read adequately the road signs. He obviously couldn't converse in English, which you need to be able to do to be able to operate one of those things. And he attempted an absolute insane maneuver on the road. So he made those decisions, and those decisions resulted in the death of 3 people, and he will be held accountable. And yes, I blame him for that. I also blame the company, which the Trump administration, I think, very admirably revoked the business license. And yes, I do blame the sanctuary state of California. So there's a lot of blame to go around, but that driver made the decision to behave in a reckless fashion and to put other people at risk. And in Florida, there's consequences for that.
I think he put it very succinctly. I think all of the above are guilty, but in particular, I think Mr. Singh is guilty, and I think he's guilty of murder, not an accident. And Florida's AG, James Udmeyer, says they're going to throw the book at him. Cut 42, please, Mike.
He's back in Florida. We're going to prosecute him to the fullest. He's already been charged with vehicular homicide at a minimum. He's looking to spend several decades behind bars, and we hope this will be a lesson to other illegal aliens like him. Your licenses are not valid in this state. We will punish you to the fullest. Gavin Newsom, he's got a love affair with illegal aliens that's killing people. So we're going to look to hold others accountable, maybe the state of California, maybe the company that wrongly provided this license, not only to an illegal alien, but somebody that can't even speak English.
I agree. Throw the book at him. This was a deliberate action. Now, the phone number is 617-266-6868, and the text number is 70470. And I wanted to read this text to you because this is the problem. 508 says, I thought Florida was a right-wing Xanadu and that this stuff only happens in badly run blue states. Well, actually, yes. This is somebody who completely misunderstands the situation, and probably because they like to look at the world through some kind of blue prisms. Florida is not responsible for this driver. This driver was licensed by first the blue state of Washington and then the blue state of California. They're the ones. The problem when you give somebody a commercial license or a driver's license of any kind in your state, they don't stay in your state. In this case, it's really foreseeable that a commercial truck driver is going to drive across the country because, you know what? That's why they got the commercial license. That's what their job is. So this guy was from the blue state of California. Then he went and killed some people minding their own business in the state of Florida. So maybe you should actually look into the facts behind something before you send off a really snarky, ill-informed text. Just saying. Let's go to Dave in Pennsylvania. Dave, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. So what do you think? Accident or murder, Dave?
1 second. I think it's definitely murder because there's no doubt. I mean, the guy didn't even want to assimilate, learn English. And then, Sandy, just 2 points. Okay, these people that wrote that little letter on his behalf, God forbid, and I don't wish this on anybody, what if it was one of their family members killed by an illegal immigrant? You know they'd be singing a different tune. And then, second of all, he didn't want to assimilate, Sandy, because he didn't care. He didn't want to learn English. And I just don't think it was a random act. I think this was done on purpose. No, I didn't see the video. I'm just going by what previous callers said and what you said. I would have to look at the video, but it sounds like it was malicious.
I understand why you would say that. I don't think it was, I don't think he set out, let me pick somebody off the road, let me hurt somebody. I don't think that's what happened. I don't think it was maliciously done. I think he's stupid. I think he doesn't know how to drive. I think he can't read road signs. And I think he's a loaded gun, that's sitting in the middle of the road. That's, I think, the deliberate part of this was getting behind the wheel. That was the deliberate part of what happened. And then getting behind the wheel when you don't speak English and can't read the road signs and you're not qualified. And then the states who deliberately let him do that, that's where the deliberation comes in. I don't think he went out there to murder somebody, but I think he knew that the odds were he was going to hurt somebody since he didn't know what he was doing. I think that's essentially what happened, Dave.
The thing, how does he drive from California? I'm willing to bet across the country. How did he know to go to Florida? You know what I'm saying? If he and I understand that maybe he didn't read the road signs, but maybe his GPS was.
Well, my guess he's got GPS that's in his native language that says turn here, turn there, whatever. But he may have missed a turn and said, "Oh, I better do a U-turn," without seeing the big signs that say, "No U-turn here." He can't read English, so he can't identify those signs. And if you've ever been at the mercy of a GPS, they're not 100% accurate. So that's why you need to be able to read English and be able to identify road signs, because GPS is not, I have taken GPS and it's taken me someplace I had no business being. And I've also had them miss turns or try to send me down one-way streets. That's why you cannot rely upon them. That's why you need to be able to read signs on your own. And especially if you're a commercial truck driver. Just saying. Thank you for the call, Dave. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to Larry in Leominster. Larry, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Sandy. Great job so far.
Thank you.
In your opening, you were giving examples of this happening all over the country, and this has affected me personally really quick.
Oh.
A childhood friend, someone I grew up with in the neighborhood, was a master electrician, had his own business. Mm-hmm. On his lunch break, I believe, he pulls up to the bank across the street. He goes to walk across the crosswalk, gets struck walking in the crosswalk by an illegal alien. Oh. No license, or no registration, no license, no insurance. They deport the guy. This is way before all this Trump, making the liberals do stupid stuff like defending these people. This is way before that. But guy had no insurance, so my friend had no claim to make. He couldn't sue anybody. No insurance company was covering it. Because he owned the company. He couldn't even file workman's comp, even though he was on the job, on the clock. He survived, but his wife left. He lost his business. He was losing his house. And let's just say he ended things permanently.
Oh, gosh.
He couldn't take it. So This irritates me to no end. Your first caller made a huge mistake. He said, well, these people are just coming here for a better life, better job. I'd understand that if this was a legal immigrant. This guy came here illegally. In California, it says, oh, hey, let's give you a license. So, there's no love lost there. It's not a premeditated murder, but it's definitely murder. I don't care if you can't read English or not. You can recognize a sign that's got a cross through it that says, don't turn. U-turn has that symbol with it. So you can't use the excuse, oh, I don't read English. Can you notice a sign and symbol?
I'm sorry, Larry, but we lost you there for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Even though he can try to use the excuse, well, I don't speak English, which should tell you not to be on the road anyways. The symbol shows a U-turn and a cross through it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
That's international, I believe.
Well, I think also, Larry, if you're driving down a turnpike and all the lanes are going in one direction, you pull a U-turn. I mean, there is no, you pull a U-turn. So it's like, wow. I mean, and to get to the other direction, the other side, there's a guardrail. You can't go through it. So I don't care where you're licensed or if you ever drove. I don't care if you've never driven in your life. Why would you do that? I mean, why in heaven's name, under any circumstances, would you do that? It defies explanation to me. So, I mean, it has to, the actions of this driver on so many levels were deliberate. So I agree, it's not first-degree murder. I don't think he got out there, as Dave from Pennsylvania was suggesting, and tried to mow another driver down. I think all his actions up to that point were deliberate, and he knew that he was creating a dangerous situation, as did both California and Washington when they didn't follow their own rules in licensing him. So I think all of that leads to me to murder. It's vehicular homicide, which is murder, or it's manslaughter, which is a form of murder, or it's second-degree murder, meaning you may not have intended to kill a person at that time, but you intended the act which caused the murder. So, to me, it's murder. It's not an accident.
Murder for him, voluntary manslaughter for the company who gave him the job and the people that licensed him.
I think that sounds like a pretty reasonable form of justice, Larry, to be honest with you. I think you're absolutely right. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to Tori in Idaho. Tori, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Good, Sandy. How about you?
I'm doing okay. So do you think this is an accident, or do you think this was murder?
Well, I was just listening to you saying you think it's murder, and the company. I think you've got it the opposite. I mean,
okay.
I'm in a truck stop right now.
Oh, sorry. By the way, I meant to call you Troy. It was we had a little computer hiccup there. So sorry, Troy. Go on. Yeah.
Hey, no problem. So I'm at a truck stop in Bliss, Idaho. I'm at a Love's, and I've been driving for 20 years. And I believe that, yes, it was an accident. Okay. I mean, I don't think he deliberately killed the three people, but I think that the company that hired him should be charged with murder. I mean, the driver, first of all, let me just say that the guy that caused that accident, there are hundreds of others just like him on the road today. Like right next to me right now, sitting right here in a Kenworth that I'm looking at. Guy's got a turban on. His beard's about 2 feet long, and hardly speaks any English. He wouldn't wave to me. They're not friendly. They park, they block other drivers all the time. They throw their trash out the window. They just do not care about our country. So in saying that, they drive like that too.
Well, what you're describing, Troy, is you're saying that they have no regard for our country, for our laws. But doesn't that also mean, and from the actions of Mr. Singh in Florida, that shows me total disregard for human life as well? Why would that not be a form of murder, knowing that they don't know what they don't know what they're doing? They're aware of this. This is not news to them. This is not a surprise. They know it. And they don't care. What you're describing is somebody who has dangerous knowledge and doesn't care. And why is that not murder? Why is that just an accident?
I don't think that he was like, I see these three people in my mirror. I'm going to make this U-turn, and I'm going to watch them run into the side of my truck.
I agree with you. I agree. Nobody
didn't know they were coming.
I completely agree with you. I completely agree that that's probably what happened. That's not where murder comes in here. Murder is not that he decided he aimed his truck at these people, or that he said, I know if I do this, I will kill people. This is what I'm going to do. That nobody is suggesting. Well, maybe Dave from Pennsylvania suggested that, but I don't believe that that's what he did, and I don't think many other people do too. What he did do, it's like he has a gun with bullets in it, and he's spinning the chamber, and there's maybe 2 or 3 bullets in a 5-chamber round, and he's spinning it and pulling the trigger, and this time he didn't shoot anybody, but then he spins the trigger again, or spins the barrel again and pulls the trigger. This time he didn't hit anybody. Does it again, bang, he hits somebody. That's the equivalent to me of what he's doing. He knows he has no business being behind that wheel. He knows it. Yet he's taken that huge, dangerous weapon out on the highway without being qualified, without knowing what he's doing. And maybe sometimes he makes it across the country, maybe sometimes he doesn't. And he didn't in Florida. And that total disregard is a level of murder. That's what I'm saying, Troy.
I just don't think it's first degree.
Okay, I agree with you. Maybe not first degree, but there are other levels of murder than first degree. There's second degree, there's manslaughter, there's vehicular homicide. There's a bunch of, they all come under the category of murder. So I think we can agree that it's not first degree, but that doesn't mean it's not murder. That's what I'm saying.
Problem is it's going to happen again.
Yeah, except that I think that Mr. Singh's case has really put a spotlight on this issue. And
I sure hope so.
Yeah, I do too, because, I can imagine they have to make you very nervous, given the fact that you're a professional, you know what you're doing, and you have regard for the people around you, and that's why you've gone through the training and everything else that you've gone through. And then you have people next to you who could give a bleep, and those people are dangerous people. And so I feel, Troy, God bless you for being out there.
I get something?
Yeah.
Like we got CB radios in our truck, and most of these guys don't. And so what we're hearing on the radio a lot nowadays is that, these guys are from California. And so whenever you see a California plate on a trailer of a semi-truck trailer, you better watch out. Wow. Because you're likely to get cut off. They've got their foot up on the door with their flip-flops. Oh. It's just the California plates is notorious now. I mean, they're all over California, Oregon, and Washington. I mean, that's what I do, up and down I-5 all the time, and they're everywhere. And they drive like crap. So
what you're saying, Troy, is that Mr. Singh is not an exception. This is what California and Washington State have been doing for a while.
Now there's so many on the road that there's nothing we can do about it. And they're not friendly. They don't wave to us. They don't say hi. They don't participate in being friendly to other drivers. They're just here disrespecting us every day and killing our citizens. I wish they would leave. Wow,
Troy. Wow. Well, please drive safely. Thank you so much for your call and for your insight from ground zero, really, for this issue. So please drive safely, and thank you again for calling. That really, it's one thing to think that Mr. Singh slipped through, that he was a single incident or one of a very few, but according to Troy, who should know since that is his bailiwick, wow, it's a huge problem. And like I said before, part of this issue is that if California wants to put its own citizens at risk, then it's up to those citizens to protect themselves and to vote these people out that think it's okay to issue CDLs like they're chewing gum. But the problem is that these drivers don't stay in California or in Washington State or in Oregon. They cross the country. And they go into other states that do, in fact, pay attention to regulations and make their drivers jump through the hoops and make sure their roads are safe. But there's nothing you can do to protect yourself from an illicitly licensed driver from another state once they cross the state line, because there isn't, there's no border patrol on the state line saying, excuse me, do you speak English? Let me see your license. You don't have that. So there's nothing, and we're too big. The country is too big to do that. So this is why you heard the incredible anger in the voice of Governor DeSantis and of his attorney general, and why they want to throw the book at Mr. Singh, because it highlights the problem that blue states like California and Washington have inflicted on all of us, not just their borders, but all of us. I mean, we see a lot of problems in California that stay in California. Their wildfire issue, their corruption issue, their homeless issue. They're all sorts of problems that they have. Their unemployment, their bad economy, all the things that they have that really affect mostly, not completely, but mostly the people that live there. But this is a problem that affects everybody and puts us all in danger. And so I think it's really important to identify this and to call it what it was. And in Florida, that accident as people on this petition are calling it, was not an accident. It was there were deliberate actions that led to that crash. And I think that this means it's murder. Rich in Natick, what would you call it, an accident or murder?
I think murder's extreme. I'd have to go maybe murder 2.
Well, that's still murder.
Or voluntary manslaughter. But also accessory after the fact to the trucking company as well as the Department of Motor Vehicles. I mean, follow the chain back and see who was involved in allowing this guy to even have a license, period. I mean, I know taking a regular driver's license test here in Massachusetts, I think you have to pass 15 out of 20 questions, I believe it is.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, this guy had no business being on the road. You know, maybe he thought that no U-turn sign said free turbines here, turn now. You know, when I first saw him with the turban, I thought, wow, this guy's up and around after brain surgery already. I'm just trying to be funny, but he had no business having a driver's license anyways, especially a trucking license.
No, especially a trucking license. It's one thing. It's bad enough, you know, having a regular car license. I went through in the opening of the show the list of, in just the past month, the illegal aliens who had no business having driver's licenses, killing people, killing American citizens, walking on the street, driving a car, riding a bike in a crosswalk, all across the country. In almost every state of the union, there's an example within the last 30 days of that. Add to that the heft of a huge truck, a commercial truck that is a weapon if it's not driven by an experienced, validly licensed person. It's a huge, massive weapon on the street unless you know what you're doing. And this guy was just spinning the barrel of that gun every time he drove out on the highway. This is Sandy Shack in for Jeff Kuhner. We're going to get back to our discussion regarding the crash in Florida, which killed 3 after an illegal alien pulled a U-turn with a commercial truck on the Florida Turnpike. But first, it is time for Truth or Troll. Take it away, Mike.
And now, America's favorite game show, where you get to decide on the Kuhner Report. This is Truth or Troll.
Today's entry for Truth or Troll comes from President Trump in a cabinet meeting yesterday when he floated an idea for how to deter people from committing murder in Washington, D.C.
It'll be a crime-free city. By the way, speaking of that, anybody murders something in the Capitol, capital punishment, capital punishment. If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty. And that's a very strong preventative. And everybody that's heard it agrees with it. I don't know if we're ready for it in this country, but where you have it is, we have no choice. So in D.C. and Washington, states are going to have to make their own decision. But if somebody kills somebody, like you could have been killed, very lucky you didn't get killed, it's the death penalty.
Okay.
Capital punishment for murder in D.C. Capital punishment in the Capitol. So what do you think, Sandy? Is he trolling here, or is he being deadly serious?
You know, most of the truth or trolls, and let's face it, Donald Trump is the world champion of the troll. I can usually tell by looking at him whether he's got that little smile. He gets this little twinkly smile on his face when he's trolling people. I could not tell with this one whether he really thinks that that's the way to go in D.C. You know, they've been very successful. It's been, 12 days now with no murders. So I don't think they need capital punishment in D.C. To stop murders. They just need, the federalization of the police force. But I honestly, if I were to guess, I'd say he's telling the truth. That would be, he's not trolling. But that's just a guess on my part. How about you, Mike?
I think he's being serious as well.
Yeah. So but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. There's always, we were initially thinking we would name it Trump's Truth or Troll, but we wanted to make sure we could use other people besides Donald Trump. But he is 95% of the trolling questions because every day it looks like just to amuse himself, he trolls somebody. But in this case, I don't know for sure. But thank you again, Michael. So let's get back to our conversation that we're having. One of the big issues with Mr. Singh and his licensing was that he did not speak English. He only got 2 out of 12 on the proficiency test. And if you don't think English is important, why are you giving the test as a requirement for the CDL to begin with? If it's not, why are you making people take it? And so when he took it, failed it miserably, and you paid no attention to it. I don't understand the rationale of the test taker, why they think, yeah, sure, you can have a license anyway. The legislature obviously thought it was important, or they wouldn't have made a requirement, right? So I think being able to speak English, being able to understand the signs, being able to understand directions from a police officer, being able to respond to other motorists on the road. These are all important things, especially if you're talking about a commercial driver's license. So the question becomes, should non-English speaking truck drivers be pulled off the roads? Should we allow non-English, and you heard Troy from Idaho, he said there's a lot of them out there that don't speak English, and most of them come from California, Washington, and Oregon. And this is not the first time this issue has come up. The Wyoming Highway Patrol, by the way, has weighed in on this whole thing with Mr. Singh and the accident and the non-English speaking truck drivers out there. And they want legislation to pull non-English speaking commercial truck drivers from the roads. And a trooper who was testifying in front of the legislature regarding this issue referenced that crash in Florida where Mr. Singh killed 3 people. So there are other states where they're considering making speaking English even more important than it already is, and giving the police, because right now they see somebody and they pull them over and they don't speak English, they can't take them off the road, because if they're duly licensed by a state, if they have that valid license in their wallet or on their dashboard, they have to let them go. Wyoming wants to be able to, if they catch you coming through their state, you don't speak English, they're just going to yank you right off the road. You can send somebody else for your truck. You're not driving through. So maybe that's the way to go. There was a suggestion made on social media that maybe Florida should implement a system using the weigh stations on their highways at the borders to prevent illegal alien truck drivers who don't speak English from creating these, crashes. The same way they do the weight checks, maybe you do English checks as well. What do you think of that idea? Does that maybe sound too onerous, or do you think that is a workable fix to some of these problems? Currently, there are, I think, 19 states and the District of Columbia who issue driver's licenses to illegal immigrants. And all of them, except for Virginia, is a blue state. And since I think the spring, more than 1,200 truck drivers have been taken off America's highways for failing to adequately speak or read English. And that's without a concerted effort to do that. So can you imagine how many are out there that don't speak English that are still driving around? I mean, Troy, our caller Troy from Idaho, kind of said they're all over the place, and they all come from one area. And if you see a truck with California license plates, you give it a wide berth, which, by the way, is something, I don't know about you, but it never occurred to me to look at the license plates of where trucks are from. I'm going to start. And if I see anything around me with a California plate, because, hey, that truck driver got to Florida from California. There's nothing to say he can't get to where I live from California. I'm going to start watching for them and give them a wide berth. How about you? Is it making you think twice about being around a truck with a California license plate? Let's go to David in Cape Cod. David, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Nancy, this is criminal neglect. This is first-degree criminal negligence. It's not the ones that don't speak English. It's the people that speak English that allow these guys to get the licenses all the way up to the governor of California, all the way, all the politicians, the registry, everyone in the chain of custody that allows this guy to get on the road is guilty of criminal negligence. Those people that died in that Florida crash, they were decapitated. Their car went underneath. That cut their heads off. Those poor people, because this idiot is on the road. There are trucks here in Massachusetts. There's hundreds of thousands of truck drivers, Nancy, all across this country. And imagine if that guy was driving over the Bourne or the Sagamore Bridge and pulled some stunt like that and hit a tanker that had LNG gas, or he was crossing a railroad track that had LNG tankers. That would be a catastrophic explosion this guy could cause. Or he could take down if he had an LNG tanker coming across the Sagamore Bridge, it would take down the Cape Bridges. I mean, this serious, like that driver that called in was joking about, this is not a joking matter. This is deadly serious. Essentially what California is doing is giving driver's licenses to blind drivers, to someone who couldn't drive. Mm-hmm. This is endangering the public.
I completely agree, David, that it's we have to hold you right there. I'm so sorry because we're up against a hard break. Accident or murder? How would you describe the crash that killed 3 people on the Florida Turnpike after a non-English speaking illegal alien truck driver licensed by the state of California tried to pull a U-turn? Our last caller said, at the very least, it is criminal negligence. Do you agree? What should happen to him? You know, there's a whole petition out there, Moonbat petition, saying just give him counseling. It was just an accident. I don't think so. And neither does the AG of Florida, who said they're going to throw the book at him and he's looking at a long time in prison. What do you think is appropriate in this particular case? Dave in New Hampshire, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Dave?
Sandy, how are you?
I'm
Thanks
fine.
for taking my call.
No problem. So what do you think this is? Is this accident, murder, or just criminal negligence? And there's no just, I guess, in front of that.
I think it's murder, again, like other people have said, not first degree, but like you said, he got behind the wheel. You have to be able to speak English. I've been doing this for about 20 years, and I was tested on it, and you have to be able to read the signs. One thing Larry had mentioned that, there was, I haven't seen the video, so I'm not sure, but U-turn signs, but a lot of those, cut-throughs on the highway have, just say, authorized vehicles only. So again, it's English that he couldn't read, But I'll tell you this, from every company I've ever worked for, especially the bigger ones, that one of the first things they tell you is if you make an illegal U-turn, whether it's on a side road or a highway, you're fired. Because that's one of the most dangerous things you can do.
Wow. Was
what that guy did.
Yeah.
I've been told by several companies, like a lot of the bigger companies will do an orientation, spend a few days learning their way of doing it, their e-log system, stuff like that. And the first thing is if you make an illegal U-turn, you're fired. And number 2, GPS, you had said it'll bring you to the wrong place. Mm. They call it guaranteed prison sentence. GPS. If you do stupid things, I'm serious.
Wow.
And every one of us who's a truck driver out there, I know it's happened to every one of us. You miss a turn. Okay, it happens, right? You might have to drive 10 miles to turn around. Mm. It's the way it goes. You cannot just make your own rule and I'm going to just do what I got to do. You have to make sure that there is plenty of room. There's a lot more to it than just like driving a car. And you said you have to be proficient in English reading, writing. And this is a federal license. I mean, yes, it's issued by the states, but it's a federal thing. So I don't know how these people even get away with, issuing these things. It's like, I believe that, like other people have said, that the people who gave them the license and everything else bear a lot of the responsibility, and the company and stuff like that. Because, and I don't think the guy did it on purpose because, these things are so heavy and so big that if you really wanted to do damage, there's a lot of other ways to do it without that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, if he really intended to do something, I don't think that would have been it, but again, like I said, they call it GPS, guaranteed prison sentence, because of things like that. It leads you to the wrong place, and you do something stupid. Okay? And, you know, he wouldn't be the first guy who goes to jail over it. I mean, and I don't think he should be treated leniently. I mean, what he did, he killed 3 people. You are responsible for your truck. Okay? There is no excuse. You know what I mean? An accident's an accident. But doing something that's illegal and just completely stupid, well, that's a whole other thing. You know, and so
Did you hear our earlier caller, Dave Troy from Idaho, said that he's noticed, because he's out in the Midwest and in the Western coast, and he says whenever they see a truck with California plates, they give it they give it a lot of space because they're really bad drivers. They've all noticed that California is handing out licenses without regard to qualifications. Have you noticed something similar?
Yes, I have, and I was going to mention that, Sandy, because up here, you know, in the New England area, it's not the California we have to watch out for. It's Canada. You got to watch out for the Canadian. It's the same kind of drivers he was talking about, unfriendly, no radios in their truck, beat up on the window with their flip-flops, and it's the Canadian ones. Because, you know, up there with, you know, Trudeau's government and everything, it was the same thing. And you'll see them with the Quebec plates and stuff, and you'll see the exact same thing. So over here, I'm more concerned with a Canadian plate than I am a California plate, because obviously we don't see too many of them up here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's the Canadians. So it's like you're getting it from both. It's not just coming from one direction. It's coming from different places.
Well, so now you've given me another license plate to look for, Dave. Now I'm going to be looking for Canada license plates, too. So it's going to be Canada and California, Washington and Oregon. Anybody with that license plate, I am just going to let you go right by and give you a lot of space. So, well, Dave, thank you so much for calling. I appreciate it very much, and I appreciate your perspective. And please drive safely out there on the roads, because it is getting more and more dangerous every single day. Justin from Revere, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Justin?
I'm well, Sandy. How are you? I'm well, Sandy. How are you?
I am fine, thank you. So do you think this was an accident or murder or criminal negligence? And what should happen to this guy?
This is negligent homicide, vehicular homicide. It's murder. He should be held 100% responsible. The company should be held responsible. And, you know, this all comes from blue government. You know, Obama repealed the ELP testing that was mandatory in a executive order.
Really?
During Obama. Oh, yeah. Sean Duffy signed it to be enforced back in April, and it went into whatever the heck you call it back in June. So DOT officers are supposed to be ELP, English language proficiency tests are supposed to be given at DOT inspections now. So, and they're supposed to be put out of service if they cannot read English. So if something's being done, it's just not being done fast enough. You know, I think it should be mandatory for every single driver. I don't have a problem getting a 60-day notice. I have to go to the DMV and take a proficiency test. I don't have a problem doing it. I've been driving for 20 years. I drive a tanker truck. Everything on the road and what's going on. And, you know, as a driver, we are guilty until proven innocent when it becomes to any type of an accident, any type. So he's 100% responsible, company, everything. From the person who stamped his license, everything. Everybody should be criminally responsible for it.
Well, apparently, to your point, I guess Sean Duffy has been very busy this past week. I have a texter, too, that's on the same line that says, 857 says, Sandy, Secretary Sean Duffy of the DOT needs to go throughout the whole country, checking everybody's credentials that are on the books for driving with a CDL in the route and root out all illegal aliens who carry a CDL and revoke it effective immediately and shut that garbage down now. And he apparently feels the same way, Justin, because yesterday, Transportation Duffy warned California, Washington, and New Mexico. Those are the 3 states that we know dealt directly with Mr. Singh. Washington first gave him his CDL. California gave him his second license that he had. And New Mexico let him drive through even though they knew he didn't speak English. And he said basically that they could lose millions in federal funding if they do not enforce that English language proficiency standard that you were just talking about. Cut number 3, please, Mike.
So phase 1 for us, which I'm announcing today, is we are going to give these states 30 days to come into compliance with truck drivers speaking proficiently the English language, or we're going to look at federal funding that they receive under the Motor Carrier Safety Assistance Program.
So they're going to lose their funding, Justin, if they don't comply with the order that you mentioned that he put back into effect last June. So it looks like the Trump administration, at least, is taking this extremely to heart. We're talking about that horrific accident in Florida where 3 people were killed after a non-English speaking yet licensed CDL driver from California pulled a U-turn on the Florida Turnpike, killing them. And this has really spotlit a problem that's been going on, and that is illegal alien drivers who are not held to the same qualifications that English-speaking or American drivers are held to, and that they don't have to pass the English, if they're from California or Washington State, or apparently New Mexico or Oregon, they don't have to pass the English proficiency test, which has been mandated by their legislators as part of the qualifications to get the CDL. Mr. Singh, the guy in Florida or from California who killed those people, only got 2 out of 12 questions right. Yet he got his CDL license. And the question becomes, what the hell? If you are giving him a license, even though he's not meeting the basic requirements, are you not responsible for what he does? Meaning, aren't you responsible for killing 3 people on the Florida Turnpike? I think that you are. What should happen to Mr. Singh? And what are we going to do about this? 603 on the text line says, revoke and deport. Yeah, I think that's in his future. I think a criminal trial may be first. That's up to the folks in Florida, how they want to deal with it, since it was their citizens who were killed. 617 says, Sandy, we will never know if this accident was done on purpose, but I do know foreigners do get in trucks and plow down people on sidewalks. Was this the mentality of this guy? Who knows? Remember, as the caller said about Canadian truckers, remember the guy who took out the Tobin Bridge a few years back? That's Scott from Ocala, Florida. Yeah, I do remember that, actually. That was a big deal, and Canada took a lot of heat for licensing that guy. I think the state of California should take a lot of heat for licensing this guy. What are we going to do about this? Sean Duffy, our Secretary of Transportation, just threatened a few states yesterday, saying either you have to uphold your English proficiency on your CDLs, or you will lose federal funding. You think that was a good idea? I think it was. I think that's very appropriate. Hit them where they live. And maybe they need to go back and go through their files, and those folks that didn't pass, maybe those licenses need to be revoked. That might be something that he could look at too. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio made an announcement. He says that work visas for foreign commercial truck drivers are going to be paused. He says, effective immediately, we are pausing all issuance of work visas for commercial truck drivers. He made this announcement on X. He said the increasing number of foreign drivers operating large tractor trailer trucks on U.S. roads is endangering American lives and undercutting the livelihood of American truckers. I say he's right on both accounts. That's a big 10-4 on both of those things. Do you think that's enough, or should we be doing more? Let's go to George in New Hampshire. George, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Shelley, for taking my call. I mean, I'm just like the rest of everybody. I mean, it's just simple. It's just common sense stuff. And I just feel as though both the federal government and the state government should be held accountable. I mean, look at the Francis Scott Key Bridge. I mean, I know that wasn't an immigrant to our country, but I mean, these are things it's just common sense. We're not looking for physicists to run our government. It's just, again, common sense.
Well, do you view this as an accident that happened in Florida or murder?
I would say I don't know how you would classify it. I'm not a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I would just say it's just incompetence. So however that classification meets the legal definition, I mean, I think that's where it falls.
Incompetence that leads to death is usually manslaughter or vehicular homicide, which are both forms of murder.
So then that's where it falls. But again, I mean, let's hold the people who issue these licenses. Let's hold the businesses accountable for putting these people on the road. That's how you deal with it. I mean, it's the same thing with that accident that happened with the druggie out of Mass. Who was driving around New Hampshire, took out a bunch of motorcycle guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
who had a bad record. Who had a bad record yet still had a CDL. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yet, I mean, I can tell you as a business owner with the DOT, if I don't have my health card on one of my trucks, it's over 10,000 pounds. I mean, it looks like I'm being inducted into Parris Island when the state trooper's screaming at me. So, yeah, I mean, rules for me, but not for thee. I mean, we're just tired of that. You know what I mean?
I do. So it's not equal application of the law. It's just like if you had gone into California and to get your CDL, my guess is, and you did not pass one section of the exam, you wouldn't have gotten your license. But this guy did, because they want him to be licensed. They want him to be licensed. They want him to live there. They want him to be part of their voting base. I think that's what's happening here, George.
They're looking at it more of a macro, like a big picture. They're like, we need more truck drivers. We need more people doing construction, and that's what I do. And so it's like when I lived down south, it was the Wild West. There are people that it was very clear they were undocumented. Some were following the process, but yet it was the Wild West, driving wages down, increasing the cost of just services in general. I mean, from my burden to the community's burden. But yet, the macro approach is how these government entities approach dealing with these issues, and it's just unfair. And again, this is not. We don't need physicists figuring out these problems. It's just common sense, systems and standards. That's all what engineering is all about. There's a protocol for everything, and I understand that the way our republic is set up, that our states, basically have a sovereignty, but the federal government can definitely dictate these are the minimum standards of what we're expecting for the road. And the states do what they do, but I mean, after 9/11, how many people were at the State Department fired? No one. If anything, they were promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No. Yeah, you're right.
It's a failure. It was an obvious failure on their end for doing their job. And yet, trillions in dollars and decades later, and all the mess that comes from it, what we did, it's the result. When someone in the government should have been doing their job. And we just have to start firing people.
I agree with you. And I think one thing you said, well, a number of things, but one thing in particular really rings true, and that is it's common sense. And President Trump has held himself out to be the common sense president, basically. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Democrats are in so much trouble, is that they have abandoned common sense for a platform that is gratuitously political and building their own political base, as opposed to what is common sense for the country. And I think that's where they ran afoul, and it just permeates everything that they do. But I thank you for the call, George, very much, and for your very common sense approach to this particular problem. The number is 617-266-6868, 617-266-6868. That's the number when you hear a caller drop off. It means a line has opened up for you. On the text line, 70470, if you want to weigh in there. 978 says, Sandy, does Massachusetts allow illegals to obtain CDLs? No, they don't in Massachusetts. They do not allow illegals to obtain commercial driver's licenses. There was the Work and Family Act that was passed a couple years ago allows Mass residents, regardless of immigration status, to apply for a standard a Class D basic driver's license. However, the federal regulations for CDLs require applicants to prove they're U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents, and Massachusetts follows the federal regulations for CDLs. So I'm not saying they haven't thought about it, but they haven't implemented anything that would allow them to, as long as they follow the federal guidelines. The answer will be no, they haven't. Let's go to Rita in Saugus. Rita, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for taking my call. I am a first-time caller.
Oh, welcome.
I'm a little bit nervous, but
you
first
are
of all,
among
I have
friends.
to say I agree totally with the previous caller, George, on every level. To me, this whole situation is like the guy whoever provided that license was like signing a license, given a gun license. And then Mr. Singh was the one who pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy, Rita. I think that's a beautiful analogy. I think that's exactly what happened. So, but then the question becomes, if for instance, Mr. Singh had shot somebody, and like you said, the person who loaded the gun and handed it to him, and Mr. Singh were both involved in this, would you try Mr. Singh for murder, or would you try both of them for murder? Rita?
Yes.
Would you try both of them for murder? Would you try?
Absolutely. No, I would try both of them for murder.
Yeah, I agree with you. So that means the people who are responsible for giving Mr. Singh the gun in this case, a CDL license and a huge truck, should also be held accountable. And that would be the governor of California, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, he has, not him, he, she, whoever, they have a responsibility to the people of their community. Yeah. And, and they failed. They failed it. They're giving out license willy-nilly, and they have no business doing that. A truck, it's a weapon, my good God. And you see that the video of Mr. Singh making that turn. Yeah. I mean, that was done with intention. Did he intend to kill? No, he didn't. But he knew what he was doing, and it was wrong. He's responsible for murder. Gavin Newsom is responsible for murder. Anybody who signs off on these things, they're responsible as well. Yeah. So, you know what? Suck it up.
That's very aptly put, Rita. I completely agree with that. I agree with the suck it up mentality. Thank you so much for the call. You did great. Do you feel better now? Do you feel good after you've called and talked on the air?
I feel, well, I was trying to keep my emotions down. I am upset with this on so many levels. Yeah. And one of the things that bothers me is these foreigners like this have no respect for life. And they have no respect, period.
It would appear that that's correct. And that's one of the things that the couple of truck drivers, that we have spoken with before, like Troy in Idaho and some of the other people who have called in and said they've noticed that's a recent occurrence among truck drivers and kind of coincides with illegal immigrants getting commercial licenses, is they don't seem to respect the other truckers. They don't respect the rules of the road. And I think you could probably add to that, given what happened in Florida, they don't respect life either, because I think, or at least in this case, Mr. Singh did not respect life because he did something that was foreseeably going to really hurt somebody at the very minimal, and he killed 3 people. And it wasn't a shocker that happened given what he did. And so that does point to a huge lack of respect for both the roads, the country, and the people around him. I completely agree with that. Thank you so much for the call, Rita, and thank you for having the courage to call in for your first time. I know it can be scary, and I appreciate it very, very much. So what Rita and I were talking about, Gavin Newsom, is in fact, I think, on the hook for responsibility. It's his state for what's happened in this wholesale licensing, giving commercial licenses to people who are not qualified, people who don't speak English, people who are not here legally or don't have work permits. And it's very interesting because social media was starting to go in this direction and say Governor Newsom is responsible, and he tried to respond to the criticism for issuing the CDL to a non-English speaking illegal by pointing out that Singh was granted a work permit by Trump. That's actually what he said happened. The governor's press account faulted Donald Trump for giving for giving a work permit, and they said, and Newsom's office said, well, he got the CDL because he had a government work permit. This was the tweet that was sent out, the social media point that was sent out by Governor Newsom's office. Are you ready for this? This is going to make you laugh, maybe. Hey, genius. The federal government, in parentheses, Trump administration, already confirmed that this guy meets federal and state immigration requirements. You issued him a work permit. As usual, the Trump administration is either lying or clueless. So here's the thing about that. That's a complete lie. It's a complete and utter lie, as was pointed out by Homeland Security, who has the records on Mr. Singh. And their response was false. Mr. Singh is in the U.S. illegally, and his work authorization was rejected under the Trump administration on September 14th, 2020. It was later approved under the Biden administration in 2021. So Trump said, no work permit for you. Biden administration came in and said, yeah, sure, what the hell, why not, and gave it to him. And by the way, another thing that the Homeland Security pointed out, and by the way, just in case you keep trying to pass blame to somebody, the state of California issues commercial driver's licenses. There is no national CDL. Sincerely, genius. So I think that was very funny how the Homeland Security responded to Newsom's really pathetic attempt to pass the buck onto somebody else. The only place that the buck deserves here is on Governor Newsom and President Joe Biden. Governor Newsom for issuing the CDL and President Biden for having his administration issue the work permit. So, I mean, that's where it belongs here. And before that, the hierarchy in Washington State, another blue state. Do you think that Governor Newsom and his followers have learned anything from this accident? Do you think that they just think, oh, wow, maybe we've really screwed up here. We need to go back and we need to make sure that our CDL drivers speak English. We need to double check on their permits. We need to make sure that everything is done. Or do you think that they're just going to ignore the whole thing and let it move on? Because I have a tendency to think that they don't learn very quickly. Their learning curve to me is a flat line. I've never seen it spike at all. What do you think, John and Peabody? Welcome to WRKO. How are you, John?
Hey, good morning, and thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I hope I can take maybe just less than a minute to get what I have to say and have you respond. First off, this driver is playing oblivious and using his non-speaking language to protect himself. Secondly, you don't need letters and numbers on a sign to indicate what you need to do. Colors and shapes are usually the simplest way and simplest form of driving if you don't have time to even read it. For instance, a green sign is the way you get on and off an exit. A white sign is a speed limit. Yellow is proceed with caution. A red is to stop, and a slash means you just don't do it. So basically, this guy had some experience, and I'll tell you right now, he had experience driving, because if he was able to get in that truck, start it, put it in gear and go, he's driven before, or either as a passenger or where he came from, he's driven before. So he's playing oblivious to all of what happened. And I'll tell you what, the person to go after, not just the state, not just basically the company, you go after the supervisor who handed him those keys, because he had to know for sure too. You got to get down to brass tacks to find out. My wife worked for a towing company and dealt with this all of the time. People just playing dumb, saying, I didn't know I couldn't park here. I didn't know, that the sign said I couldn't take this road, and I ended up hitting someone. And, most of them were just walking pedestrians. And these people, sometimes they just play dumb. So if you're in the car, you better believe and you better know what you're doing. And most of the time they do, but they're using their language to protect themselves, I think, at times. So, like I said, we need to get down to the person who handed him those keys and bring him to court as well. Not just the person who hired that supervisor, but the supervisor himself, who knew full well this guy should not be in this truck.
I don't disagree with that. I think that that's very common sense and a very good reading of the situation, John. But I think it's more than just the people who handed him the keys and let him get behind the truck. The state of California allowed the company to do that. They couldn't, if the state was not issuing CDLs to people who couldn't speak English and who may not have the skills to drive, then the company couldn't hire them. So I don't think it stops at his immediate supervisor or the owner of the company. I think it goes right up the chain in California that allowed this to happen. Because, and don't forget that they're not allowing it to happen just because they need truck drivers, which, of course, there is a dearth of truck drivers, and it is an industry that badly needs qualified people. It's also because they view it as, he's an illegal alien. They view it as expanding their voter base and keeping themselves in power. That, to me, is craven. It's craven. To put people in danger, not just in your own state, but in other states too, by giving somebody a CDL who's not qualified and allowing companies to operate, to your point, inside the state, to hire these people, because the state had to have full knowledge that that's what the company was doing. And the company was only going as far as the state was allowing. So they're equally at fault, I think, as much as Mr. Singh is, because he obviously knew that he wasn't qualified and still did it. I think all the levels here have to be held culpable. Add to the scourges that blue states have brought upon us. How about non-English speaking illegal aliens who have commercial truck licenses from the blue states and who go out and kill people, like the one who killed 3 people in Florida? Thank you, Governor Newsom, for that. Do you think that this crash will wake up the Democrats, at least in California, and make them possibly reflect upon how they approach illegal immigration, possibly making them think that there's something more important than building up their power base and normalizing the status of illegals? They don't seem to care about the crash that happened. As I was just telling you, Governor Newsom was spending his time trying to throw shade for that on President Trump, where it did not belong. I mean, they completely lied about the Trump administration giving a work permit to Mr. Singh. He didn't, never did, was rejected for one. The person who did was President Biden. And the people who issued the commercial license, even though the guy failed the tests, was California. But they don't want to look in the mirror. Instead, they spend their time obsessed by the ICE raids, chipping away at their voter base. You had people like Jasmine Crockett, and she's not even from California. She's from Texas. She was on Newsom's podcast, and her whole thing is, aren't they just basically taxi drivers? Why are they deporting people? I couldn't believe, it's just an example to me of ignorance and the blinders and the woeful, deliberate refusal to look at the illegal immigration issue. I'm going to play the cut for you because people don't believe me when I say that she said that. Cut number 27, please, Mike.
ICE, for the most part, is nothing but a ride. That's all they were supposed to do for the most part, right? It's like, you know what? This person is undocumented, or this person re-enters the country illegally, all the things, and then they have an ICE hold. and then ICE gets them so that they can then send them out. That's all ICE is supposed to do. Look at them as a fancy Uber driver for immigrants. That's all they're supposed to do. And now they're running into places and doing raids, and they're falling all over each other, injuring each other. Like, we are a joke, but it is a bad nightmare of a joke. And so I don't think that this president has any limits that he won't go to.
I don't think that there's any intelligence there whatsoever. I mean, that if she knows what she's saying is bizarre, then she's evil. Otherwise, she's just ignorant. If she actually thinks that is what ICE's job is, or what ICE should be doing, she doesn't want to look at the damage caused by illegal aliens, like what happened in Florida, or like the wholesale crime that's happened from wholesale uncontrolled immigration. Instead, she just wants to call other people evil, and this is the problem across the board with the Democratic Party, and in particular California under Newsom. In Los Angeles, she had Mayor Karen Bass demanding that ICE end all of its raids on work sites. She says at fruit stands and car washes. She posted this Twitter or this on X, that ICE raids at fruit stands and car washes must end because they're un-American, and declaring that she will never accept these tactics as normal. What she's referencing is there was a ICE raid that arrested an illegal alien named Claudio Reyes Vasquez during an operation at a car wash in Orange County, which is right outside of LA. And he was one of the worst of the worst. He was arrested for lewd and lascivious acts with a child under 14, and there was an active federal warrant for his arrest after he violated his probation. He had a criminal record going back to 1990, having been convicted of molesting a child, beating a spouse, DUIs, battery, petty theft, never mind just being here illegally. That's who she's defending. She doesn't reference the fact that, maybe if they cracked down on illegals, you wouldn't have had an illegal CDL driver killing people in Florida. She's defending, my head explodes when I think about it. And down in Florida, you've got Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and she is bull bleep with both Ron DeSantis and President Trump because of Alligator Alcatraz, which is the detention center that was put up in the Florida Everglades by the state of Florida with assist from the federal government. And part of it is a deterrence, so that if you don't want to go to Alligator Alcatraz, maybe you should self-deport, and then you can apply to come back in. That's how it is supposed to work. But Debbie Wasserman Schultz says this is not about the immigration problem. Debbie Wasserman Schultz seems to believe that this is racist, that deporting people is a racist thing to do. And she went on CNN to say so. Cut 39, please.
All the MAGA Republicans and Ron DeSantis care about is the abuse of human rights, because, they have declared war on people of color, whether it's in education, the erasure of their history, with the efforts to whitewash the history of in the Smithsonian museums, rounding up people with masked ICE detention center employees and kidnapping them, not giving them access to counsel.
She just takes my breath away. That is such a misrepresentation of what is happening. And it's all about political power gain. She doesn't care actually about the people. She doesn't care about the people of Florida. Does she talk about how horrible it is for that accident to have happened on Florida roads because of a California blue policy that gave an illegal alien, non-speaking English alien, a commercial driver's license? No. We must close Alligator Alcatraz because it's actually assisting in deporting people. Florida Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz says it is racist to hold illegals in Alligator Alcatraz and to deport them. Governor DeSantis said, really? Cut 40B, please.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she's for open borders. She does not want any enforcement of immigration law. And she says if you just simply remove illegal aliens who've already been ordered to be removed through our system, that's somehow a human rights violation. So these folks are telling us who they are, and they are people that do not put the American people first.
Is he right? Do they not put American people first? Are they putting their own power base? Are they hoping that illegals vote for them, so therefore that's why they're protecting them? A federal judge last week ordered the closure of Alligator Alcatraz within 2 months, within 60 days, and ruled that no more detainees were to be brought to the facility while they were winding it down. It was pretty much of a shock ruling. It was a district court judge, yes, indeed, Kathleen Williams, and she was building on a temporary restraining order that she issued 2 weeks before. 82-page order she put out, 82 pages. And this is the Southern District of Florida. And the reason why she's closing it really has nothing to do with illegal aliens. That's the excuse, or that's the effect. What the excuse was, the reason why she closed it is why she's saying it's causing severe and irreparable damage to the Florida Everglades. And she said that a plan to develop the site in which the jail was built for a big airport was rejected in the 1960s because of the harm it would have caused to the ecosystem, and that no further construction at this site can take place. And that's basically what her order says. But that's a little disingenuous. And Florida isn't just going to say, sure, fine, no problem. Ron DeSantis' office has said that President Trump's deportation plan for that area for Alligator Alcatraz will continue as planned. And they basically have said that the ruling from the judge ignores the fact that the land has already been developed for a decade, since the 1960s. And this is just another attempt to prevent President Trump from fulfilling the mandate to remove the worst of the worst, gang members, murderers, pedophiles, terrorists, rapists from the country. Governor DeSantis got up and out, and this is what he had to say regarding Alligator Alcatraz. Cut 26, please, Mike.
Down in South Florida at Alligator Alcatraz. I just wanted to say this was not something that was unexpected. This is a judge that was not going to give us a fair shake. This was preordained. Very much an activist judge that is trying to do policy from the bench. This is not going to deter us. We're going to continue working on the deportations, advancing that mission. We knew that this would be something that would likely happen, and we will respond.
So they're not rolling over. They're absolutely positively fighting for Alligator Alcatraz. And it seems to me that they are focusing on what they need to focus on to make not just Florida safer, but the country safer, as opposed to on the other side of the country where you have Governor Newsom, who really doesn't care that his state is licensing unqualified, un-English-speaking illegal aliens that are killing people in other states. So who do you think has their finger on really what the American people want here? Is it Governor Newsom or is it Governor DeSantis? What do you think? Let's go to Harry in Chelmsford. Harry, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Harry?
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Well, anyway, I just want to chime in here. I haven't called in a while. Glad to call in. I'm retired. I had some physical stuff that happened to me. I had to retire early. 45-year journeyman electrician, licensed, and it took some doing to do the exam. So there's some level of smarts there. And for me, my company bought a new bucket truck, and to drive it, because it had different brakes that didn't require CDL, I went and said, well, that should be easy. Don't take the damn test. I'll get the booklet, study a little, and I'm telling you, that thing was hard. And I flunked. So for these people to be driving on our roads without completing that part of it is just blowing my mind here. I mean, and before a truck leaves the yard, from what I learned in that booklet, there's all these kind of safety checks they got to do. So they're just jumping in the truck. You know what? I bet they were drivers in their own country. Because you can't just jump in an 18-wheeler and drive it.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have experience, and I heard that this morning a little.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's back on the state. They got to be held responsible, especially for giving the guy the license that ended up down in Florida killing people. It's just pitiful. And all to make a political statement and a vote. And, you know, I'm sure somewhere along the line, the ones responsible are getting their pockets greased somehow by checking another box off, saying, I got another immigrant here, and I got him in the country doing something. Check. And they probably get money back from that to pay for their lifestyle. It's just, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. You know, I thought this was done, and, you know, obviously we're going to keep fighting these idiots.
Mm. You know
But
what drives me crazy, Harry, to hear, you know, Governor Newsom's people try to put this off on somebody else when when it's obviously their issue, their responsibility, what they did, and they pay no attention to it. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom is more concerned with redistricting in Texas. That's what he's spending his time on, is the fact that people of Texas have decided to do something that he doesn't like. He's paying no attention to what his own people in his own state do, but Texas, they're people who are wrecking democracy.
You know, they shouldn't be driving. None of them should be driving. Find out how they can recall these people and get them out of these trucks is just ridiculous.
Well,
they got to do it.
Well, I got to say, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy is making an effort. I mean, he is threatened Washington State, California, and New Mexico, and I think that's the tip of the bucket. They're basically threatening them with withholding federal funds unless they do something about holding people accountable for speaking English, or at least following the qualifications that they set out. It's not as if, Harry, this is one of the things, too, that kind of blows my mind. It's not as if they just hand out the licenses. They just say, here's your license, go. They actually make them take the tests because that's what's mandated by the legislature. But then they don't care if they pass them. So they're going through this lip service, like, well, we gave them a test. And they don't expect you, or they think you're too stupid to ask the next question, which is, did they pass? And the answer is no, but you still gave them a license. Yep. And it doesn't just affect them. If they want to do that in their own state, and it only affects, you know, their own state, if they want to not hold people to building codes, if they want to not hold people, then that's bad. But it only affects their state, and those people who voted those people into office are wreaking this upon themselves. But what they're doing in this particular case with the CDLs is affecting everybody across the country, Harry. That's what I found outrageous, don't you?
Crazy.
Yeah, it is. I find it crazy, too. I do. Thank you for the call, Harry. I appreciate it. And I can hear your blood pressure rising, so, you know, take a deep breath. And I understand your anger. You didn't pass the test, so you had to either go back and take it again or have somebody else drive the bucket truck. This guy doesn't pass part of his test, and no problem. Here, have a license, have a good time. And I think you're right. He was a driver in his own country, but have you seen the drivers in some of these other countries? They don't have the same licensing requirements that we have. He may technically, Mr. Singh, knew how to drive a car, but he knew how to drive the truck, but knew nothing else. Who's responsible for the 3 deaths on the Florida Turnpike? Is it Mr. Singh, the illegal alien truck driver who doesn't speak English, but who was licensed by the state of California? Governor Newsom, who is in charge of everybody who's licensed in California, in charge of all licenses everywhere in California, and all the policy, and all the people underneath him who decided it was okay to give Mr. Singh a license even though he didn't pass the tests? Is it everybody in between? You know, who's responsible for what happened in Florida, and what should happen to them? Let's go to Carlos in New Bedford. Carlos, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Good morning, Sandy. Great show. So, as a truck driver for almost next month, I'll make 28 years. I've seen the decline of drivers, the way they drive and everything else. So, who's responsible, you ask? Well, there's going to be multiple angles on this, and I don't know if anybody touched on this, but he himself, I think, is going to be. I don't think they're going to go after him for murder. They probably get him for, I don't know if this is part of it, but reckless driving, death resulting, probably something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
You know if that's on the books or
probably
something.
vehicular homicide. Yeah.
And at some point, they'll probably downgrade it because a lot of these people that I see, and it's not just whatever nationality is, what is he, Indian or something like that. Yeah, I see multiple different nationalities, Chinese, Spanish, you name it. I've seen it because when I drive and I back into the facility, I've driven to I do the Northeast, mostly the Northeast. Now I'm local. I'm home every day like I was before, but I went further in my earlier times of driving. So when I am sitting in a door just watching somebody approach to even back up, the simplest things to back up a trailer, at times in the Northeast is probably one of the worst places to drive because everything is so tight to back into and drive and to make turns and everything else. Whereas in California, the Midwest, everything's wide open. So from talking to all the drivers, it's their qualifications to get their license is pretty lax. It's very loose on getting what they're going to get for a license. Now, as far as this driver, did he drive truck before? Maybe, maybe not. But see, these companies hire people that will, probably have somebody as an instructor that speaks their language. And they're just pushing people through. And if they could drive forward and learn how to shift. Now, a lot of these trucks, like the one I'm driving right now, it's manual, but it's also automatic. So a lot of these companies are converting their trucks into getting automatic, so they just get in and go. So for this driver to be going down the road and not realizing that sign, they're there just to make the money, okay? Mm-hmm. So who's responsible? You got to look at the dispatcher, which knew that this guy, he has to show his DOT card. He has to show all this. What experience does he have? Who put him through this? It's going to have to go back to the chain of command. Like, look in Massachusetts. Wasn't there a big scandal in Brockton, the RMV, where the state police was giving out licenses? Yeah. So, I mean, it's not just there. It's everywhere throughout the country because this country is short on CDL drivers. But like they say in, what is it, Duffy or Hunt, whatever his name, they have to be able to speak English in this country to understand the rules of the road, to read the signs. For him to do what he did, I don't know if he did it. I don't think he did it deliberately. I just don't think he was qualified. I mean, a lot of these people are not qualified to be on the road. Like I said, I see people try to back in and the bad habits. And I talk to these people, how long you've been driving? And usually somebody that's been driving for 3 years should know about the bad habits and know the little nuances of driving a truck, okay? So who's responsible? You're never going to get Newsom to be responsible for anything, okay? So it's going to be the people in between that gave him the license, the state police, the DOT, or whoever gave him this license. They're the ones that should be responsible. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So for him, I don't think he's going to get much of anything. I mean, it's Florida. They could try, but I just see him getting reckless endangerment with a vehicle, like you said, vehicular homicide. What does that carry? 2 years, 3 years? It'd probably be dropped down.
I think it's more than that, and I think that they will, because 3 people were killed. This was not, this was not just an accident. This was 3 people that were killed by something really stupid. And something that you said struck me when you said that he was just unqualified, and I agree with you that he was unqualified. But when a state, a big truck, in my view, Carlos, is in fact a weapon. So you don't just hand out, a CDL to somebody when they're not qualified. That's literally, and we had an earlier caller who likened it to this. It's literally handing somebody a loaded gun and telling them to pull the trigger. And it depends on whether there's a bullet or not in the chamber, whether it's gonna kill somebody. But at some point it is, if you put, ammunition in the gun. So being unqualified as an instructor for something, or being unqualified to type something, or being unqualified to be at a radio station, those are all, nobody's going to get hurt if you're unqualified for those. You may screw up your job, you may damage the company, but nobody's going to get hurt. But with a truck, somebody is going to get hurt. So being unqualified is tantamount to giving somebody a license to kill somebody, in my opinion, Carlos. So I think it's more than just he was unqualified. I think, and you may be a little bit inured to the dangers of driving the truck because you do it for a living. You're used to it every day and you're good at it, or you wouldn't have been doing it for 28 years, and you respect the roads and you respect the other drivers, and you have the appropriate amount of caution when you are dealing with things. So I think you may have lost a little bit, maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe you've lost a little bit the sense that what you do is dangerous, because the rest of us view it as dangerous, and we have a great deal of respect for you for doing it, and God bless you for doing it, because it's what keeps the country moving. But I don't think you have appropriate appreciation anymore, because you're used to it, as to the danger this man posed. What do you think?
Well, it's just like anything else. You get in a car and you're driving down the road, and you think, oh, you know it all. You know, I mean, I'm guilty like a lot of people. Grab your phone and this and that. So I'm not going to say I haven't done that. And you take for granted because you get relaxed.
Yeah.
And when you're driving. But here's the other thing in that video, Sandy. If you have, and this is I've heard this from mechanics, okay, that worked on the vehicles. The drivers that you see, you have a two-man team. One guy will drive, the other one will rest. Well, a lot of these Middle Eastern drivers, it's going to sound gross, but if they have their own tractors, they do not stop. They'll stop for fuel, they'll get their food for the trip, and they'll stay in their tractor. They will not go to use the toilet. They will literally cut out a hole in the floor and do their business, okay? I've had mechanics tell me that when they had to work on a vehicle. They would refuse to work on a vehicle because there was paper. Yeah, I don't want to sound gross, but paper all over the place. So they don't. Yes, you might have another driver that will verify this. It's a true fact. I heard this multiple times from mechanics, and they will not work on these vehicles. So, but to answer your question, yeah, we all get a little complacent, or a little, maybe with whatever word you want to use, cocky, that we're going to be okay. But in the grand scheme of things, Sandy, doing this for 28 years,
yeah.
I still look at it as a weapon. This is like a missile. Okay, so. I've been in a couple of accidents with black ice, okay? There was no way I was stopped, and I creamed 3 cars. And God willing, thankfully, nobody got killed, nobody got seriously hurt.
Yeah.
But like to answer your question again about who's responsible, the people in between, the people that gave him the license, the people that tested him, and you might find out that he might have paid for these licenses. You might, in the long run, you might find that out, Sandy.
Yeah.
So that's
so
what I have to say with that.
There could be criminal fraud going on too. Yeah. Thank you so much for the call, Carlos. I really appreciate it. And please drive safely. And God bless you. Like I said, truckers are what keep this country moving. And if you didn't think that before, I think you learned that big time during the pandemic, when we had a serious supply chain issue because of mismanagement with Secretary of Transportation Buttigieg. So I think I have a great deal of respect for truck drivers, and I think a lot of other people do too. So thank you so much for the job that you do. Jeff from Chelsea, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Jeff?
Well, Sandy, almost 30 years ago, I got my CDL license as a Class B driver, and I do know this, that if you're not unionized as a truck driver, you're pretty much making peanuts. In fact, one of the first truck driving jobs I had, I was making $9 an hour as a driver, and I only stayed there for a couple of days. But the moral to the story is, the reason why these companies hire illegal aliens and non-speaking migrants is simple, is because they won't complain, they won't ask for a raise, and they're basically behind the 8 ball, and these company owners see dollar signs. I mean, there's a lot of procedures you have to do as a truck driver. Pre-driving inspection. You have to inspect the whole truck to make sure there's nothing wrong with your truck, especially if your truck has air brakes. And a non-English speaking migrant will just say, whatever you say, sir, whatever you want to give to me, sir. and that's pretty much it. And you have to know somebody to become a union driver. I mean, that's why I'm a security officer and no longer a truck driver, because non-union driving is not worth it. That's all there is to it. And Sandy, it's going to get worse. And states like California don't want to lose their voter base, so that's why they're going for the illegal aliens. I mean, even Trump, as good of a man as Trump wants to bring in 600 Chinese students into America. I was looking at that from the New York Post. So this addiction to cheap labor and cheap migrants is addictive. What do you think, Sandy?
No, I think you're absolutely correct. I think that is why you have a lot of the blue states trying to look the other way, trying to normalize. I talked about this in the beginning of the show. Normalize illegal aliens, normalize their presence here by issuing first driver's licenses. That's what Illinois did 10 years ago, and then Illinois is now trying to make them into driving instructors as well. And then you have the CDL licenses. But the CDL, there are certain federal guidelines you're supposed to follow for giving the CDL licenses, one of which is that you have a work permit, which means you're not here illegally. And then you have to meet certain other requirements, including being English speaking. And California did none of the above. Or they did actually, they kind of tried to pass the buck. I mentioned this just a few minutes ago. They tried to claim that President Trump had given him a work permit, which he didn't. There's records in the Homeland Security that show that, no, he was issued a work permit, but it was by President Biden who issued a work permit to an illegal alien. Again, it comes back to trying to keep, at your point, the voter base. They don't care what havoc they wreak as long as they're earning votes, and they view illegal aliens as Democratic votes. I mean, this goes back to 1965 and the Immigration Act of 1965, sponsored by Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy. They knew in 1965, it's when anchor babies were born, that if they could bring in enough aliens without having to meet the stringent requirements we had before 1965, they could increase and they thought permanently increase the Democratic voter base to the point where eventually they would become omnipotent. That was the plan. And then an adjunct to that has become illegal aliens, because they assume that illegal aliens will vote Democratic, since the Democrat Party is the one that puts forth, free everything and we won't touch you and citizenship, et cetera, et cetera. So that seems to be, there can be no other reason why Democrat cities, blue cities, are such scofflaws in regard to illegal immigration. Because this is not just a humanitarian issue. If it were, it would be more understandable, to be honest with you. It isn't, because in their zeal to protect illegal immigrants, they are hurting Americans, and that's a humanitarian issue as well. So it can't be just humanitarian. There has to be another reason, and the only reason that I see, and maybe I'm being short-sighted, and if somebody can tell me there's another reason, please call in and tell me. It seems to be to protecting that voter base. But the problem is, when you do that, you're sucking the resources away from Americans who need it. You're creating a humanitarian crisis and a poverty crisis for Americans. You are putting Americans' lives at risk as well. As we discussed earlier again in this show, we went through in the last month, there's been a huge rash of illegal aliens killing Americans with cars, just with regular driving cars. It's bizarre in the last month. And then we haven't even gotten to the commercial licenses, which are bigger weapons than a regular passenger car. So, and those can do more damage. And in fact, did exactly that on the Florida Turnpike. And you have to assume that one state, when they allow a commercial truck driver to cross the state line and come in, that guy has been, or that woman, whoever it is, has been duly qualified and licensed. You have to make that assumption that the other state has done that. And because you don't have, troopers at the state lines, checking out the validity of people's licenses, you have to assume the other state. You have to trust the other state to do that. And California and Washington State, and apparently New Mexico too, have all fallen down on that duty. And when they do that, they put people and citizens of other states who do follow the laws into great risk, as they discovered last week in Florida when those 3 people were decapitated when their van struck the truck doing a U-turn on the Florida Turnpike. So I think you're right, Jeff. And I think it's disheartening to think that people like the governor of California are so callous and have so little regard for human life and care more about elections than anything else. And that, to me, is just kind of makes me sick in the pit of my stomach. And I think that we have to find a way to hold him accountable. I'm not sure what that is. I think the obvious answer is, he fails in an election. But the people of California passed by an opportunity to remove him for hypocrisy and other misdeeds. So maybe this will be the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe this will end his career, his political career. I tend to think not. He's getting ready to run for president. Do you think he'll be successful with this on his record? That's another question. Harry from Bridgewater, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Harry?
I'm wonderful, Sandy. Excellent job as usual.
Thank you.
Sandy, I was an instructor for a school here in Massachusetts for over 10 years, and I worked in tandem with state police doing road testing for CDL drivers. Your permit test is 50 questions, which you're required to get 40 correct. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't end there. Once you get your permit, you are required by the FMCSA to take a course which you have to pass in order to be eligible for a road test. You don't pass that federal course, you cannot take a road test. Now, a lot of the drivers, I've amassed over 2 million miles driving. I'm an over-the-road driver. And I finally retired from over-the-road, and I went to teaching. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the drivers, the old-school drivers, they're the ones that have the proper etiquette. These new age drivers, they have no clue what's going on underneath their backside when they're traveling down the highway at 60, 70 miles an hour, 80,000 pounds under them. And the problem is they're not professional truck drivers. They're steering wheel holders because they're improperly trained, or they just take for granted that once they get in that vehicle, they just assume they're driving their car, that they can stop on a dime and give 9 cents change. It doesn't work that way. You have to have some prior experience, and a lot of these companies now, they're hiring drivers because nationwide we're about 400,000 drivers short.
Wow.
We're 67 drivers short just on the east, 67,000 drivers short just on the East Coast alone. So there's a lot of process that you have to go through in order to be eligible for a road test, let alone be able to drive a truck. And I agree with a lot of these other drivers. These guys out that are driving now, they have no clue what's going on. There's no communication on the CB radio any longer. Back in the day, we'd stop and help somebody if they were broke down on the side of the road. We communicated. There's no communication these days. That's the problem. And the fines are totally ridiculous. If you're driving a tractor trailer and you get caught with a phone in your hand, it's a $2,500 ticket to the driver. It's a $14,000 ticket to the company. But as with Democrats, you can't fix stupid. So I think this problem is going to be consistent until somebody actually puts their foot down and says, you know something, at these weigh stations, we need to start screening these people. And if they can't speak English, impound the truck, lock them up, and deport them if they're not here legally.
You know,
That's
it's so funny.
my view.
You bring that up, Harry, and as you bring that up, I was just looking. They just released new video of that Mr. Singh being stopped in New Mexico from the body cam of the trooper that pulled him over, and the trooper can't understand the illegal truck driver, and the truck driver can't understand him. Yet he was allowed to go on. He's just, he got a ticket, but he was allowed to continue on his merry way, and then he ends up in Florida. You said something interesting you said a lot of things that were interesting, Harry, but one of the things you mentioned in the beginning was the 50 question exam. Is that always given in English, or is it given in other languages as well?
No, English only. A CDL permit test has to be in English. For a Class D license, it can be in your language.
Okay. But for a
But
commercial
you are
truck driver,
required.
yeah, it has to be English.
Yes,
yeah.
correct. Right.
So, and my understanding is that Massachusetts follows the federal guidelines. Apparently, California doesn't. Apparently, California doesn't care if you speak English. So,
Plus, there's a final exam that's provided from the FMCSA that you have to pass just to be eligible for a road test. If you don't pass that federal exam, you're not eligible for a road test. It doesn't go to the R&B for eligibility for a road test, so you cannot road test.
Harry, what percentage of people who, as an instructor that you've seen, who take the test and who fail it?
Typically, about close to 45% of these people are going to fail.
Okay, almost half fail. Wow, that's pretty high. That's actually reassuring to me that Massachusetts at least follows these strict guidelines. That's extremely reassuring. I am Sandy Shack in for Jeff, and we're asking who is responsible for the 3 people who died in Florida on the Florida Turnpike when the driver, Mr. Singh, pulled a U-turn. He was not qualified to be behind the wheel, but he had been licensed by California, who didn't care if he was qualified. They let him fail the exams and gave him the license anyway. And that's okay if they want to let him loose on the roads in California, but that license enabled him to drive across the country into Florida and go through New Mexico, which, they knew he didn't speak English and didn't know what he was doing, but they didn't stop him. They just gave him a ticket. And then he ended up in Florida where he killed 3 people. Who's responsible for this? Is it the driver, Mr. Singh? He knew what he was doing. Was it the governor of California who allowed his Department of Transportation to issue license to unqualified people who then killed 3 people? Is it the company that hired him and put him behind the wheel and they had to know what his lack of qualifications were? Is it all of the above? Who do you think is responsible? Susan on Cape Cod, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Susan?
I'm great, Sandy. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Who do you hold responsible here?
It's like the previous caller, the instructor. It's a little bit of everybody. And I am a newly licensed CDL driver. I drive a school bus. Mm-hmm. And what the other trainer didn't say is we get 6 chances to pass the test, which is pretty tough. And I remember, I don't know if you remember, towards the end of last year, there was a young child who was hit by a school bus driver,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
and he died.
Yeah.
The city of Boston was down like 50 drivers at the beginning of the school year. And by the time the school year started, they were full up. How did they get 50 drivers? Okay, and what we found amazing as school bus drivers is there are mirrors in the front of the bus called crossover mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see down to the ground the whole front of your bus. Why didn't this person see this child crossing the street? What kind of training did they get? It's great. There's all kinds of tests, but, I think when push comes to shove, sometimes they push people through to fill their quotas.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's right. And I think that's a really scary example of exactly that, what you're talking about now. I did not follow through with that story, so I don't know what kind of training that driver had or whether they were experienced or inexperienced. But from what you say, the odds are that they were not on the more experienced end of the spectrum, wouldn't you say?
Yes, but I'm not that experienced either. I'm only into this 3 years, but I had a fantastic trainer, and I take my job seriously because school bus drivers are highly regulated
mm-hmm.
because you have lives in your care.
Yeah. Well, I would argue, Susan, that all truck drivers have lives in their care to a certain extent because, they have these huge behemoth vehicles that are moving at very high rates of speed in close proximity with passenger cars, never mind, other trucks. And, when a truck goes down, it usually takes others with it. It doesn't go by itself, with rare exceptions to that. So I think being a truck driver is probably one of the more stressful jobs that you can possibly pick, and also one of the ones that needs extreme training, vigilance, and really strict adherence to qualifications. So the fact that what happened in Florida has opened up and I'm sure as a truck driver, many people, the ones who called in already know, as a CDL driver yourself, you are more aware of what goes on in the industry than those of us who are not licensed in the industry. This was an eye-opener for me, knowing I knew that there were qualifications and there were strict qualifications. I had assumed that everybody abided by that. I did not know that you have entire states that could give a bleep, that just issue them anyway. Did you have an idea? I mean, obviously you did about the school bus driver from that accident, but did you have an idea of how bad it had gotten, Susan?
I think that's like a two-sided coin because they're struggling to get CDL drivers because it's such a hard thing to pass. It's
apparently
very
not in California. If you're in California, it's not hard to pass at all. Not even at all.
And at the same time, the regular everyday people who have their Class Ds, they drive like idiots. They don't pay attention. I see it every day where this guy ran our reds. It's a constant daily thing. People just don't pay attention anymore. They don't understand the responsibility of driving a vehicle, any vehicle. Yeah. Whether it's your everyday passenger car or a semi. You're driving a moving thing that can knock you down and kill you in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, and then take that level of responsibility even further with a truck driver, because it's even bigger. It's the Queen Mary as opposed to a little outboard skiff. Basically, is what you're talking about. So I completely get your point. Thank you so much for the call, Susan. I appreciate it, and thank you for the work you do with the kids because I know that that's not an easy job either. That's got to be extremely stressful. Let's go to Mark in Salem. Mark, welcome to WRKO. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Sandy?
I'm doing fine.
Listen, I travel the highways a lot. I do two different jobs. Okay, my full-time job is I run heavy equipment. I pay a lot of money for my license to keep it maintained. I have to do a continual education program. I work for a company where we have people running our machines that don't have licenses. Last night, I had to work an overnight shift. I drive a dump truck. On my way out to Western Mass, I was passed. Now, there's 4 lanes on the highway. Each lane has a designation. The right-hand lane is the granny lane. That's the lane for the people going slower who are getting on and getting off the highway. The 2 middle lanes are travel lanes. And that far left lane, we call it the hammer lane. It is designated as a passing lane only. Mm-hmm. It is not for travel. Mm-hmm. Last night on my way out to Wayland, it's 6 o'clock in the evening. I'm on my way out to do a night job. I'm passed in the 3rd lane by a tractor trailer of a gentleman with darker skin color, and he was cooking. He didn't want to sit in the line of traffic because we're restricted to those 2 right-hand lanes. He didn't want to sit in that traffic. So to him...
So he was being a scofflaw. Who is responsible for the illegal alien truck driver who killed 3 people in Florida? Just him, or... is it the people who gave him his license without him passing the requisite tests, or is it all of the above? We were talking, I'm sorry, this is Sandy Shack sitting in for Jeff Kuhner. We were talking with Mark from Salem before the break, and you got rudely cut off, Mark. Welcome back.
Thank you. So as I'll say, so this driver didn't want to, and I see this regularly. I travel a lot on the highways. Mm-hmm. They don't know what lane they're supposed to be in. They think that the entire highway is accessible to them, and it's not. Now, I'm going to give you the example, and this is how often it happens. Mm-hmm. I worked till 2:30 last night. I was coming back down 95. Now, 95 at 2 in the morning is a fairly quiet road. As a driver, I live in my mirrors. I want to know what's coming up behind me. I want to know if there's an emergency where I can put my truck. I see a truck coming at me in that 3rd lane, and he was moving. He never got out of the lane. There was no need for it. There was nobody on the highway except for me. But they don't know where to go. Now, every couple of years, we have to do what's called self-certification in Massachusetts. I don't know if other states have to do it, but every couple of years, I have to do a self-certification. Don't know if they're doing it because we don't know how they're getting their licenses. I can say this. I go by a weight station on 95 every day. And every day I see a state trooper having a truck pulled over that blew the weight station. They just smoked right by it because they don't know that when that sign says open, they're required to pull it. And every time you go by, it's not a your typical white American. I don't want to be mean about it, but it always seems to be the usual suspects that won't stop at the wait station, blow through red lights, use every lane in the highway. I got passed last night. I was doing 65. This guy must have been doing 85 because he went by me like I was stopped. And he never got out of those left lanes. If you want, I mean, you could say, oh, we got to check them at the wait station. The state troopers can't stop every truck that blows the wait station. They just can't. There's too many trucks and not enough personnel. If something gets done, it has to be done from the signatures that are being given to these drivers. Whoever's signing off on them, and if something happens, that person has to be responsible. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in today's society, with politics the way it is, and it's the sad part, the people who are going to suffer, those 3 people that were in that minivan and that truck driver. Now, did he set out that morning and say, you know what, today's the day I'm going to kill some people? No. Nobody ever does that. Well,
I think you're right. Yeah, I believe that. I don't think he set out to kill somebody, but he set out to drive, and he knew he shouldn't be driving, and he still did it anyway, and that's deliberate. That's a deliberate act.
The thing. Nobody's going to be held responsible except for him and the people that lost their lives. And that's what, and I'm going to say it this way because this is how I feel. Mm-hmm. And that's what we Americans are dealing with every day. The look on his face, he saw the truck hit him. He looked out his window. I saw the video.
Yeah.
He looked out his window, no expression.
Yeah.
They showed him standing on the side of the highway, hands in his pockets, no expression, like it didn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And we Americans, whether we are legal citizens, whether we are born and raised here, we are the ones who are bearing the brunt of this. And nobody, not any governor, no mayor, none of them will ever be held accountable. The only ones who get held accountable are us. We're the ones who have to be held accountable for what takes place on the roads because nobody else really cares about our lives. They do not care. This is how I feel. I see it all the time. Government does not care what happens to us one way or another. As long as they get their money and they get their votes, that's it. And these drivers are going to continue to come in. They're going to continue to wreck. They're going to continue to wreck lives. And nobody at the higher table is going to pay for it.
I think that has been true, Mark. I don't think it necessarily will continue to be true. I think that it's up to us if we're going to hold these people accountable. In this case, I think it's the people of California who have to hold Governor Newsom accountable and his Secretary of Transportation accountable. And just lower level firings, won't do it. Because let's face it, whatever is going on at the licensing board in California is smiled upon or looked away from by the people above, and that's who you have to change. And it's the people of California who have to do something about it, and that is not reelect him. Or on a more national level, if he's running for president, Newsom running for president, which I believe he is, I think you're seeing a soft launch of a campaign with this podcast that he's been doing. You give him a drubbing. You make sure that he doesn't win, that he's held accountable on that level. He's not going to go to jail the same way Mr. Singh will go to jail, but I think he does need to face some consequences. They're not harsh enough, in my opinion, but at least they're something. Because I understand your frustration that Mr. Singh is the one who will be held responsible, and Mr. Singh should be held responsible for what he did. I saw the same thing you did in the video. I saw him expressionless, standing by the side of the road. I don't know whether he was in shock, and that is why he is expressionless, or whether he just doesn't value human life. I don't know why he was just standing there hanging out like he was waiting in line for a soda. I don't know why. But I did see the same thing that you saw. And maybe if he is held accountable and does serious time in prison as opposed to, an 18 months nuisance sentence, then maybe other people who should not be licensed to drive should not have a CDL and be driving big rigs or large trucks, maybe they will think twice about picking that as a way to make money. Maybe they'll see it's not worth it in the end, that they could, because they're putting other people at risk, maybe they too should think of another way to go. I'm hoping that that's what happens. Thank you so much for the call, Mark. I appreciate it. Gino from Buffalo, welcome to WRKO. How are you, Gino?
Good morning, Sandy, my paisan. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing today?
Very good. I just like to say it seems like we've fallen into maybe the liberal trap in the last 30 to 40 years of before a crime is even brought to court, we parse it apart, and by the time it gets to court, the person who's held responsible is already broken down, so their responsibility is very minimal. I think we should take this illegal immigrant to court, find him guilty, put him in jail, and then go after the various aspects of what always leads us to this, is corruption and bad management by horrible politicians.
Yeah, I think that's true. The problem that we have, and you need to turn your radio off, Gino, the problem that we have is that, this is California impacting people in Florida. So the federal government is going to have to if we're going to ever hold the people of California or the governor of California responsible for what's happened here, then there's probably going to have to be some kind of federal reckoning. And other than what Sean Duffy, our Secretary of Transportation, is doing, which is withholding federal funds from states until they clean up their act in regard to CDL licenses, I don't know what else they can do. I mean, they could launch a criminal probe. And I guess the way to go after that is the fact that something that they did in California affected people in Florida. And so that would bring it into the federal national level. I'm not sure what exactly the mechanism would be for that and what the best way to go about doing that is. But I think you're right. I think we have to do that. And I don't know how. I'd have to look into it. But I'm pretty sure the Department of Justice could probably figure out a way how. Thank you for the call. I really appreciate it. Let's go to Sergey Sergey in Newton?
I'm so pleased to talk to you. Hello?
Yes, Sergey. Go ahead.
Yes. To have a CDL, commercial driving license, is very complex.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain schools, they give education and stand behind the student.
I got to hold you there for a second, Sergey. Please hold on, and we'll come to you on the other side of the break. Our text number is 70470. 617 says, Sandy, if the highway was built with federal funds, then I think this accident could be a federal crime. It's a stretch, but I don't know. It might be the ticket in on how to hold California responsible for an accident that happened in Florida because they did not adequately follow their own rules in regard to giving a CDL to a non-English speaking illegal alien. But we were talking with Sergey from Newton before the break. Sergey, I'm sorry we were interrupted.
Hello?
Yes,
Hello.
You're on. Hi.
Yes. Okay. The bottom line is I figure that the company that hired this person is very responsible for what had happened because there's certain restrictions on CDL drivers, and not every driver can cross the state line. There's the interstate that they can do that, and intrastate. If state would like to hire CDL drivers without experience or for some other reasons, like medical reasons, they can do it. But these drivers, they cannot cross the state line. And because our system now upgraded, we have one system, federal system for CDL drivers. All days, the drivers could have several driving licenses, like from different states. Now must be one license, interstate, so easy to control. Now, regarding, because, like I said, restrictions. So all days was a federal requirement in the 80s. The all CDL drivers supposed to go through retraining. And this is how it happened. The old drivers used to go to the school and have study manuals and different type of cars and trucks requirements, air brakes, dry tankers, buses, and they have to be certified in every single issue and bring this certificates from re-examination to this to get a license, because the licenses were 1, 2, and 3. Now we have A, B, and C. So many companies offer drivers with a B come over and they send them for retraining to drive semi-trailers, 18-wheelers, because shortage. Now, of course, many things went out of control. Licenses have been purchased, but I figure the companies who hired these people to drive semi-trailers, they are responsible for this. They have interview with the drivers. They check everything, criminal records, medical records. This has to be on the shoulders of the companies who send this driver out of the state of California, interstate. You understand what I'm saying?
I
right?
do understand what you. Sergey, I completely understand what you're saying. And in this particular case, the company that did put him on the road, licensed, hired him, has had their license revoked. So that has happened. So they are being held responsible to a certain level. But I also think beyond the company and beyond the driver, the state that allows a company to operate in this manner, to put people who are unqualified behind the wheel and who encourage people to take advantage of a broken CDL system or a system that is either for purchase or for just not following their own rules and regulations, I think that they should also be held accountable because they created the business atmosphere that this company could do business in. If California held strict adherence to its own rules and to the federal rules regarding CDL drivers, this company would not have been able to operate. So yes, absolutely, I agree with you. They should be held accountable, but it shouldn't stop with them. I think it needs to go up the chain. Thank you so much for the call, Sergey. I appreciate it very much. Let's go to Deb in Foxborough. Deb, welcome to WRKO. How are you?
Hi, Sandy. Good. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Who do you think is responsible here?
Well, I think from the person who put the keys in that guy's hand all the way up to Newscomb, I don't care. He can go blame anybody he wants. The buck stops with him in the state of California. He's the governor. I just want to say also that I am a passenger car driver, and what I see on the roads as far as respect from the passenger cars to in relation to the trucks is appalling. Like when you drive onto an entrance, people see the yield sign or whatever they're seeing there, and it's just shut your eyes and step on the gas. That's all it is there.
Yeah.
And they're giving the people in that third lane a race to get out onto the road if they're even aware that they're there. And like everybody's been saying this morning, the semis are a weapon, and they can't stop on a dime or even sometimes swerve because there's somebody directly beside them, and it's just it's a harrowing experience sometimes. Just sitting back and watching what's going on in front of you.
Yeah, no, I have, and I've seen a lot of close calls myself. I know exactly what you're talking about, Deb. I have seen, and I have been guilty of trying to, race to get on the roads to get in front of a truck because I didn't want to get stuck behind it because I can't see around it. And so I have been guilty of that myself, although I have to say in recent years I've become much more respectful of the big rigs. I've always been somewhat respectful of them, but I don't. If a truck wants to get in front of me, I let it. At this point in time, I don't don't try to beat it to anything, but I have done that in my youth, which was, in hindsight, extremely foolish, given the size of those vehicles and the damage that they could do. And like you said, they can't just stop on a dime.